Hey everybody, and welcome to AP Bio. The first thing we're going to talk about is water and how it affects the fitness of the environment. So why is water important? So what molecule is the most common in living cells? You guessed it, it's water. So most cells are actually going to be between 70 and 95% water. We also live on the water planet, so you guys know that the vast majority of the surface of the earth is covered by water, and that we have these really, really deep oceans that we don't even know what's in some of them because of just the amount of water on the planet. So we're going to look at the properties of water and why some of these properties are so important that they really are responsible for a lot of really important functions of life. So first, liquid water is cohesive, and what that means is that water sticks to water, and it does so because of the polarity of water results in hydrogen bonding. So water is a polar molecule, which means that you'll get one side of water that's slightly positive and one side of water that's slightly negative, and those two water molecules will be attracted to each other, and we call that hydrogen bonding. What's also interesting though is that liquid water is adhesive, which means that water sticks to other molecules, and again, that's because of hydrogen bonding. Now, these two things are really important for lots of different aspects of life, but one huge example is water transport in trees. So it uses cohesion and adhesion. It's almost like a giant straw that runs through the length of a tree that allows water to be transported all the way down from the roots way underground up to the top leaves of a tree. So water also has high surface tension, and what that means is that the surface of water is really difficult to break or stretch. And so you can see in this picture, a really good example is when insects can walk on water. And again, this is due to hydrogen bonding. Water also has a high specific heat, and specific heat is going to be the amount of heat that's needed to raise 1 gram of a substance by 1 degree Celsius. And again, it's because of hydrogen bonding. So just real quick review, heat is going to be the total quantity of kinetic energy that's due to molecular motion, so those molecules moving. And then temperature is how we measure the average speed of the molecules. And in this class, we will be using the Celsius scale. And so on the Celsius scale, 0 degrees Celsius is where water freezes, 100 degrees Celsius is where water boils, and then our human bodies are about 37 degrees Celsius. Now, water also stabilizes temperature. And so what that means is that water can absorb and store a really big amount of heat, a really huge amount of heat from the sun. And so it results in climate moderation. And so it allows organisms to survive temperature changes. Now, we live really close to a really huge lake, so Lake Michigan is right there, and a lot of the times if you are watching the weather in Chicago, you'll hear the meteorologists talk about cooler by the lake or warmer by the lake, and that is because that body of water is large enough to stabilize temperature. Here's just a kind of an example. And so you're showing the Pacific Ocean, obviously a larger body of water, but then just how it moderates temperatures along the California coast. Some of these are kind of hard to read, but you do have the area right along the coast in the 70s, and this is in Fahrenheit. And then as you move further and further away from the coast, it gets warmer and warmer. Water also has a high heat of vaporization. And this heat of vaporization is the quantity of heat a liquid must absorb for 1 gram of it to convert to a gaseous state. And so when we think about evaporation, you may not think like, oh, this is really important to humans, but it is. So evaporation in humans leads to evaporative cooling, aka sweating, and we're from Chicago, so I had to throw Jordan in there. So water can actually cool organisms from excessive heat buildup, and again, this is due to hydrogen bonding. Next, we know that water expands when it freezes, and this means that the distance between water molecules actually increases as it goes from liquid to solid form, and you guessed it, it's because of hydrogen bonding. And so what you have here is a diagram of what water looks like when it's frozen, and you can see all these water molecules, the hydrogen bonding attractions are still there, but it ends up holding the water molecules in a very stable structure, whereas when water is in its liquid form, the hydrogen bonds are constantly breaking and reforming, and so that's what makes, because it's so such a solid structure here in ice, that's essentially why it's expanding when it's freezing. And so it's interesting because with water, ice floats, whereas in a lot of other molecular structures, the liquid is going to be very different, or the solid is going to be very different, and it's going to sink. All right, and so a really important result of this is that aquatic life can live under ice. So if you've got like a pond in the winter that freezes over, that ice is going to stay at the top. And so it is possible to have aquatic life survive underneath ice in the winter. All right, guys, so your lecture question for today is, can you please explain one property of water that you can see on a daily basis and describe the importance of that property?